Uh, can you hear me now, Sandy? Hi, how you going?
Hi, Roan. How you going?
Good, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone.
Yeah. Hi, Justine. Hi, Anna.
Hi, everyone.
Good. No, Olga and Andrea and Merit. That's okay. Hmm.
Give another couple of minutes and just see who else wants to join. So feel free to have a chat and catch up. I'll do the admin thing and admit people.
Hi, Mark.
Hi,
Australia, so to speak.
thank you. Welcome.
I did
Nice
say
to
hi, Mark, but maybe you didn't hear me. Hi, Mark.
Oh, I didn't. Hi, Sandy. Hello, everyone.
Thanks for being here.
Oh, yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Mm.
Oh. Where's everyone from? Are people in Australia or some of us are from New Zealand, huh? Who's from New Zealand?
Australia.
I know Anna is. Oh, Olga, you're in New Zealand too?
No, I'm in Australia.
Oh, Australia. Hey. Hello. How about you, Mairead?
Yeah, in Perth.
In Perth. Ah. Hi,
You're
Heather.
in Perth too, Patricia, aren't you?
Yep, I'm in West
Hi, everyone.
Australia,
West
down
Australia.
south.
Oh, okay.
Wonderful.
Mm.
Auckland.
Okay, I think let's kick off. Firstly, would like to thank Mark for coming in, having a chat with us. I think with the new group starting, Mark, as I explained, this is the first speaker coming on, and we were going to try and sort of keep things going and bring you back if possible at a later stage. Just for the rest of you, I think the first time I saw you, Mark, was when I was attending one of Michael Neal's courses. I
Mm,
think you were a guest on there, and this must have been probably around 2015,
yeah.
2016 the first time. So ever since then, I've been following you, and I think I brought you in probably 2 or 3 times before. I just love the way you share your sense of humor and the simplicity in it. So I'm really fortunate to have you. I've asked Dr. Mark Howard to come on today and share a little bit about his story, but also talk more in particular about stress, worry, and anxiety from a principles understanding perspective, and then leave 20, 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes to the end for some Q&A. I know there's been a bunch of questions. If you're not in the group here today, if you're watching it later from a recording perspective, I will pick up the phone and refer to those questions. Mark, thank you very much. I'll hand over
Yeah.
to you. Mind. Thank you.
Well, thank you for inviting me and happy to be here. And yeah, I did a number of events with Michael Neal, and what I might send you, you just reminded me when you mentioned my working with Michael Neal. We had an event, and someone asked a question about depression and anxiety in terms of the principles, and looking at how does the brain work with anxiety and depression. And so Michael turned it over to me, and he only answers the easy questions. And but I tell you, I got inspired in that moment, and it was um, it was an inspirational answer that Michael carved out as a separate video to send to people. Now, it isn't about me. It's about how when you can really get into the sense of understanding thought and let that guide you in your answer. Um, that's really what it demonstrates. But it also speaks to a deeper understanding of thought with anxiety and depression. So I'll send you the link to that, and you could share it with the group here. So I'm really happy to be here with all of you. And I was telling Rowan that I love it being interactive. So, if we could leave a good 20 minutes for questions, I'd love to hear them and hear anything you'd like to share. Um, So with our time, just a brief introduction. You know, I was like informed that a very wise man was giving a seminar in my area where I was living, and that it would be good for me to go hear this. At this time, I was a licensed psychologist working in a medical center. And I wanted to learn more, and I also wanted to be happier in my life. So someone suggested going to listen to this person who was Sydney Banks. And so I went to a Thursday evening and really at that time realized something very, very deeply about feelings, and you might call it anxiety or worry or any feeling. I just knew in an instant when Sid was talking, and we could talk more about this, but what I saw was that's made up. Those feelings are made up. They're created from thought. That's what I saw. But it was very powerful, and I didn't realize it at the time, how powerful that was for me to see that. I knew in that moment, sitting there in the audience, I knew if I really could understand what I just realized, I'd be happy. And so would my clients and patients. But the powerful part was when I got back to the medical center the next day, that morning, to see my individual patients. When I went into the office, I all of a sudden realized I could not work with them from any of the approaches I was working with before. It no longer made sense. It just didn't make sense. But I didn't have much, but just this one sentence about feelings being made up. But that's where I started. And when I shared that with people coming in that day, um, they all wanted to talk more about it. But again, when you realize this knowledge, this understanding for yourself, you will see that that's the only thing that makes sense, um, and you get a certainty that what you've realized, what's been your insight, which I'd love to hear if as we do some interaction, that will really change things for you for the better. I had been, in my training, it was in the 70s that I was being trained as a PhD psychologist, and I had to learn, like, I don't know, 8 different major approaches to psychotherapy that were used around that time. And you always had to master the way that person who developed the approach worked. You had to master it their way. But what Sid said is, don't listen to me because you already have this within you. Another profound feel of this understanding that you already have it in you. You don't have to follow someone or master their ideas. You have it within you, the wisdom in you to move you more toward happiness and well-being. And today, as we're talking, away from anxiety, worry, and stress. So again, I've been involved for 40 years. I've developed, programs from this principles with other people who were there at the beginning, and also on board of the 3 Principles global community that we formed after Sid's death. So that's me now. I just work at mentoring people who want to share this understanding in their work and to the world, and maybe do some individual coaching with people. But most of my work has been with mentoring people now. And this understanding helped me in my marriage. So my wife and I have been married 52 years now, but I don't think we would have been married that long without without my having this understanding that gave me a lot of realizations about how to be more loving and understanding in a relationship. And just this past week, we celebrated Easter here. My 3.5-year-old grandson was with us for a year. So you talk about somebody living in the now. A 3.5-year-old boy lives, or girl lives in the now. You know, nothing stays. Nothing is there to be bothered by. They run to the next thing. So that's me. Very briefly, because a lot happened in 40 years of deepening my understanding of these principles and sharing it. So let's look at how can you see, how can you have understanding for stress and anxiety and worry from an understanding of the principles or Sydney Banks' teachings? And I must say, a lot of my understanding for these kinds of issues came from my work daily in this medical center. I was in the psychiatry department for 28 years, and then went on my own. And just recently, a friend during COVID asked me to come and help out in an inpatient psychiatry unit. So I keep learning about how this understanding helps people with their fearful thinking, really, and with their stressful thinking. And everyone that I've come across is a teacher for me. So I met with a young woman about 10 years ago about anxiety. She wanted to no longer have anxiety. And it was really difficult for her to come to be in person with me in the office, because a lot of her fearful thinking now had caused her to stay in her bedroom. She was afraid of anything, any kind of chemicals in the household. Her father was doing some painting in the kitchen, and she would not go into the kitchen. And just the night before coming to see me, she had started to feel stomach issues, started to worry about the stomach issues, went out on the internet and got even more fearful about what could be going on with her stomach. So one of the first things we looked at together is that her thinking had all to do with her being fearful and anxious and worried. And of course, we didn't start there, but as we developed a connection and rapport, I offered that to her. Would she like to look in that direction? Because if she could realize that her worry about her stomach and her fear that led her to stay in her room was really the result of how she was using this beautiful gift we have to think. And as we think, what we think becomes a reality we're living in. And the minute we change how we're thinking, we're living in another reality. And she was open to that. She was open to taking a look at what her thinking may have to do with feeling so fearful and worried and anxious and stressed. We started to look at what does Sid's teachings help us see here. The first thing it helps me see is that those feelings are not really telling us about our outside circumstances. They're telling us what we're thinking about. They're telling us how we are using thought to think about those outside circumstances. So, for example, you know, for me, I thought for years until I started to learn the principles that my job was stressful. That, and I could see the changes. Once I entered the medical center, I started to feel the effect of what I would think was stress, of the stress of being there, and the amount of hours I had to spend, and what I was responsible for, and the meetings I had to show up in, and so forth and so forth. You know, once you create an idea about your life, to thinking about your life, you get thinking that justifies it. So it was my boss and the way she talked to the staff. So how that played out was maybe maybe twice a week, I was looking at other jobs. That's how it played out for me. This is a stressful place. I don't like feeling this way. Let's go someplace else. So, but what helped me shift that way of looking at how to handle my stress, or what stress really is, was realizing the principles of thought, mind, and consciousness. What I started to realize was stress didn't exist in the medical center. Like, it wasn't there in the medical center waiting for me to come in and then drop into my mind. It wasn't like that. In order for me to feel stress, I had to think about this work in a way that caused dissatisfaction or judgment, or or some kind of stressful way, not wanting to be there. Without that, really, without that, I wouldn't feel stress. Even though there were what you might look at demanding schedules, a boss that always thought her way was the right way, all of that. Without my thinking about it in a way of this being painful and stressful, my getting into creating dissatisfaction and judgment, I wouldn't feel stress. I wouldn't. So the first thing I realized was stress isn't out there waiting for me to come into it and then drop on me. Stress isn't out there on traffic so that the minute I got onto the highway, stress fell on me, like, rain or pollution. But really, it was coming from the way I was looking at things through the power I have to think. So that was a profound realization that I had to stay reflective about. But then I started to see things. I started to see that, I loved my work. There were moments in the day that I loved my work. I loved managing my staff. I loved talking to my patients about this understanding. I loved walking into the crisis room and helping them out. All of a sudden, I started to see, you know what? There are times I really like my job. How can that be if stress is in this medical center? It's like I don't have some choice in the matter. I'm going to feel stress no matter what. And I started to see that my thinking changed when I got stressful. I got, if my boss left something in my mailbox about my program that I was managing, I got insecure thinking. I got fearful thinking. When she called me in for a meeting, I got anxious before I even went into a meeting. I started to see that I was thinking about going into the meeting in a way that was getting me anxious. I wasn't even in the meeting yet, and I was already sweating. I started to see all these things, and it helped me. It helped me realize that the way I thought about anything that was coming my way in that medical center was causing me stress or anxiety or capability or embracing it or enjoying. And so that realization has helped me there from there to now. When I get caught up in, I don't know, judgmental thinking, I now realize it very quickly and are able to quiet that down and come back to being guided by wisdom to think about it in a more, I don't know, understanding way. So very briefly, what happened with my relationship with the person I had to report to, my direct report, they used to call it, I started to have understanding rather than judgment. As Sid talks about, we're all the same. We're all using thought to create the reality we're living in now, the reality we're living in. And when I started to make sense of that, I saw her differently. I had been able to see that she's the same energy as me, and she's getting into thinking that's creating her way of operating with the whole staff, her way of being very judgmental and righteous with the whole staff. With that understanding, I saw it just coming from that understanding, it occurred to me how to be different. And I realized that I should go and support her. I realized that maybe there were some things I was doing as a manager of this program that was causing her to get insecure or into this thinking that she got into. With that understanding, I went to a meeting with her, and I wasn't anxious at all. I went in the meeting to tell her I want to support her and to acknowledge that I may not have been as understanding as I could have been. You see? So I went in at another level of consciousness, you could say. Here was the consciousness of fearful thinking, but then came the rise in consciousness as new thought came in. It was still thought, but it was of a deeper understanding of how we work, what we are, a deeper understanding of the nature of thought. So when I went in, I had no anxiety. And it led actually to a very supportive relationship, to where after a couple of meetings where I went in this way, she came up to me at one time and says, "Mark, you've changed. What are you learning? I want to learn what you're learning." And actually went to a couple of SID seminars with me, So here we are. Here it is that I'm thinking, I got to leave this job because this boss is terrible, to a place where we're driving together to a seminar of Sydney Banks. So, it's just a profound results of understanding the nature of thought and how it creates for all of us our feelings, the experience of life we're living in that moment. And all you have to do is see the truth of that. Keep open to the truth of that. Then you will see it your way. And when you're caught in that, the wisdom of that understanding will come in. It'll let you know, oh man, your thinking's off today, or your thinking's going south, or take a break, relax, settle down, and bring you back to the understanding. I want to tell you a story about this that I've shared before, but it just so profoundly affected me. Many years ago now, a woman came to see me. She was 85, and she says, I'm depressed. We can look at depression, anxiety, stress, worry, the same. She's in a feeling that feels terrible for her. She's depressed. And she said, I want to be happy for the remainder of my life. I'm 85, I'm healthy, but I know, I've got several years left and I want to live them happily. So we're talking like I'm talking to you, and it's not going anywhere. She doesn't seem to be getting any understanding. And I just asked her one time out of frustration, I said, are you ever happy? And then she said, yeah. And it kind of stunned me because she never shared ever being happy. And I said, well, when's that? She says, well, when I wake up in the morning. And so then I said, well, what happens to your happiness? She says, by the time my feet hit the slippers, I remember I'm depressed. And it just hit her. She got an insight in that moment. She saw the truth that when she stood up, she thought of herself as a depressed person. To put it in this language, she remembered, she now is thinking of herself as a depressed person, and she was depressed. Now, when she's in that reality, she gets depressing thoughts. I was a terrible wife. I wasn't good to my daughter. I have no friends. I'm not going to have a good day. All of that comes in. And of course, you're living in it. But once she saw that, she was free of it. She turned to me and said, you mean I just think I'm depressed? I'm not really depressed? I said, not really. If you don't think that way, you won't be depressed. You somehow, when you're sleeping and you wake up, you let those thoughts go and you're happy. And so she started to live in that understanding and that realization of the nature of thought. So when you have questions around anxiety, around worry, around stress, you want to go back in and reflect on the nature of thought. Stress in you can only exist because you're having stressful thoughts, whether you're aware of them or not. It must come from thought before anything. Now we're talking about the formless energy of thought, but that must come before anything. And then, because of consciousness and thought working together, you feel the effect of your thought, biochemically, physiologically, emotionally. And that's what you want to do. You want to come back into looking at thought and see, stay reflective. Like what I mean by that is, I ask myself, I want to see more about how this is my thinking rather than the medical center or the circumstances. And I leave it alone to let the guidance and the insights percolate. So I know there's a lot I could cover with you here, and I want to hear from you too. I just want to say one other thing here, because I was just coaching someone today who thought that she's saying, I understand the principles and thought, but I'm still getting caught up in my thinking. And I know that thinking isn't real. And I say, well, what do you mean by that? He said, well, I know that what I'm thinking about life isn't real. Well, that isn't the principle of thought. That thought is just given to you so you can know life. The way you know friendship must come through thought. The way you know family, it must come through thought. The way you see traffic must come through thought. You must see this. It is real out there. And I really want to emphasize that, because you see, many times people do see something that isn't good for them. They do have a thought that this is harmful to me, you see, and that is real. It's helping people be able to see the truth of their thought and feel empowered to voice it. So thought has nothing to do about real or not. Thought allows you to know life. The difficulty with it for us is that we have learned thinking that at times will give us a misunderstanding about how we see life. Just like I had a misunderstanding of my director, my boss. I saw her through judgmental thinking. Now, did she strike fear in the staff? Was she righteous? Yes. Yes. But I didn't have to get scared by that. And I could see that in another way that was truer. She is reacting from her thought, just like me. And that thinking she must have in her mind must be painful, because she's acting in a way that scares people. So that's the other piece you want to help people see, you want to help yourself see as well. Understanding thought doesn't mean your thinking isn't real. It's just a level of consciousness thinking. And you always want to look to see if you can see it with more understanding. But remember, Sid, I love Sid saying this, you're given the gift of thought. That helps me see the beauty of being given a true gift to go through life and know this life. Not only know this life, but have an opportunity to deepen your understanding of life. So I just want to check in with people with our timing. I give a seminar once in a while on this subject, and it goes a day. So I really mean this. I hope I was able to share it in a way that meant something to you, that you could see the role that thought plays with anxiety, worry, and stress. Always come back and have a look here first. Don't have a look out there first. Have a look here. And how am I looking at this? Can I quiet down a bit and see it with a little more understanding? So Roan, I just want to check in. I'd love to hear from people. Just want to check in with you on the timing of things now.
Thank you for that, Mark. It was just beautiful. I think it's peppered with real life examples. It's clearly pointing to the role of thought, creating that sense of feeling and experience of life. So loved it. Thank you. We have about 25 minutes.
Oh,
questions and answers. So I'll take a back seat, and if you want to ask a question, just unmute yourself, go for that. If I see everyone else jumps in, we might need to coordinate it, but let's go for Q&A.
I'd love to. Oh, yes. Olga? Olga?
Oh, you go first, Sandy. Yeah.
Oh, I
Are you
didn't
sure?
see. Oh, hi, Sandy.
Hi, Mark. Thank you for that. That's wonderful. I've made a few notes for myself as usual, but the question I'd like to ask, please, is if you could speak to the idea that we need to control. It's about controlling, because sometimes it can be confusing if it seems like it's our job, you know, to notice. And I know it comes from the understanding, but I think people can accidentally think that that means I have to control it. I have to turn my negative thinking into positive thinking or something like that. I feel like it's different. I feel like it's more of a, our whole system wants us to feel good. So it's really important to know that how we're feeling is coming from here and not out there, because then it kind of happens more automatically. But I'd love to hear your take on that, please, Mark.
Well, I love that piece that you are meant to be happy. And this intelligence of mind that you are is guiding you there, your way. You may be stumbling toward it, but you're meant to be happy. One of the most profound statements I heard from Sid was, oh gosh, I had it and I was this I was caught up in too much thinking. Oh, I see. I got it. The most unnatural state for a human being is unhappiness. So you're right. You're moving toward happiness all the time. Were it not for our thinking, really. But you just stay reflective about that. You don't want to judge yourself about that. Now, there's no way that you're going to succeed controlling your thinking. No way. In fact, you'll get tired because it'll be another full-time job along with the work you're doing now to keep thinking about how you're thinking and then start to try and think differently. Why is that difficult? What's difficult is you're already in the reality of your thinking. So your thinking has already convinced you that your mate has bothered you. You're in bother. So what are you supposed to do? Have an index card that says, if you're in bother, stop your thinking. You wouldn't carry it out because you're bothered. Your thinking is making that look real. Now, here's the thing, though. Whatever you have realized, any of you have realized, anything that you have an understanding about the principles, it will come to you. It will occur to you. It will occur to you. Just come into your mind and you'll remember your thinking's off, or this has something to do with your thinking. That's how it will happen. When that happens, you know the next step. You're already free. It just shows up, you see? And so as you deepen your understanding, you'll see yourself, it will occur, how you're using your thinking will occur to you more and more. I have a friend, Keith Blevins. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but we've taught together a lot, and he will teach this to a group, but he'll say something like this. He'll say, do you see this indentation in my forehead? It's from going, oh no, there I go again. But here's the beauty of what you really are a part of. You don't have to use any strategies. You just live, and what you have learned so far will come to your mind. You'll just wake up to, oh, that's what we were talking about with Roan. Oh yeah, that's what happened here. I just got caught up. Now, the minute that happens, you've shifted from your bother to your understanding. And here then will come in guidance, new ways of thinking, like settle down, quiet down, let it go. All of that will quite naturally occur to you. I can't emphasize this enough, that that's the power of the principles, is that you don't have to worry about your thinking. You don't have to judge yourself if you're not getting yourself out of a low mood. You don't have to work at thinking positively. It's not that at all. But what is the good news is you have this energy, call it an intelligence, that will guide you. It will give you what you've realized. Like I realized early on, I make up my feelings. So when I was getting angry, it came to me. Sometimes not right away, but it started to keep occurring to me. You're just making that up, Mark. You're just caught up in your thinking. Things like that would start to occur to me. So that's how to look at it. Go easier. And the best way to get better at this is to keep learning the principles. Actually, read Sydney Banks. I listen to him still. Whenever I walk for exercise, so I walk about 4 days a week, and I listen to a tape I have. And I continue to listen to him. It wakes up more understanding. I used to teach methods to change negative thinking, how to handle that and think differently. Now, people would catch on, they would try it, but it had no lasting impact on people because they didn't understand that all it was thought. Some learned thinking they grew up in to be fearful. They just learned it. They learned to think this way. And you have to realize that as being true. Once you realize it as being true, when you get caught up, this understanding comes to help you. There's so many times I've given people, before the principles, I've given people homework to identify, we used to call it distorted thinking, and apply a few of the ways to move away from distorted thinking. And people wouldn't do the homework. So I hope that helps.
Yep, that's perfect, Mark. Thank you.
Right. And Olga, you wanted to ask something?
Yes, Mark, I did. Thank you very much for that. It was very interesting. I've got a question about thinking and thought. Is thinking thought with a capital T in form, given that thought is formless?
Yeah. Yes. So I'm going to do my best here. You know, this is an ongoing understanding the rest of our lives. The thought of the principles, the thought that Sid's pointing to with the principles, is a formless energy. That's why he calls it spiritual, not because of spirituality, but because it's formless. There's no shape. But it allows us to create form. That's the only way we can navigate life, is that we're creating form, our thinking. Yes, you see. So having thought allows it to take the energy of mind and allow us to take that and form. make a form, a belief, an idea, an image. But thought itself is formless, it's neutral, it doesn't care one iota what you do with this power. It doesn't judge, or it can't, because it's way beyond, it's beyond what we could understand with our intellect. So the way I've looked at it is I get a feeling for it being a formless energy we're all a part of, that allows us to create. It gives us the power. It's a power, Sid would say, it's a power to create form, which would be our thinking. Now, once you create that form, everything follows immediately. Everything is a reaction to what you formed. So when I work with people, I'm trying to point them to get a feel for thought as an energy. I'm not interested in their working with their thinking.
Mm.
You know, I will talk to them about it, but I'm not interested in working with their thinking. I'm interested in their getting a feel that they're given this power to create anything they want to create. They want, any way you want to think, you can think. So yes, that's how I would see it, Olga. Did that help?
Yes, it did. Does that, the follow-on from that then is that things like feelings and sensations come out of, do they come out of our thinking, or do they definitely come out of thought with a capital T, that formless energy, but do they come via thinking, or do they come direct from thought with a capital T? Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, well,
Or
that's,
does it matter?
yeah. Here's what I think. This is Mark Howard. You could see that your sensations, to me, sensations and feelings have the flavor of my thinking.
Yeah.
See, because they can't have a flavor of nothing.
That's it. That's it. Thanks, Mark. Got it.
Yeah, yeah. So
that's the critical thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
So
I
they
didn't
come
see.
via thinking. Yeah.
This is why I love being with you all, is because I did not see that till you asked me the question, and I just listened.
Yeah.
But that is the truth, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And it sits, and you know it's the truth because it sits right. You know, like
Yeah.
it's sort of, it's like it's gone plunk, you know, kablunk.
Yeah.
You know, when
Yeah.
something just clicks into place.
It did. I could hear that with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, like, we used to draw something like you can't have happy thoughts and then depressing feelings.
No, it's impossible.
And you could tell with anxiety too that everything follows. With anxiety, there's a physiological reaction. There's sensations. All of that must follow thought, because when you're happy, you don't have the same physiological reaction. You still have physiological reaction and sensation, but they're not the same. They're not the same interactions. They're not dealt with the same way with your body.
Mm.
But
That's right. Your body responds differently.
Yeah, yeah. Anybody else want to share or ask something, or?
I think, Heather, you've had a question. Would you like to ask it around trauma?
Yeah, I've just listening to this. I was just sort of the feeling, the moment. You're feeling what the sensations come up in the moment. But I'm just sort of long-term, like chronic conditions where I talk about the neural pathways, like it's just the instant. It's just it's an ingrained pattern that your body does or your thinking does. And I'm sort of starting to, from this conversation, I've just really picked up on you talked about your supervisor or your she's coming from her painful thinking, and I can see that is a pattern of my own. but the body responses, I guess, when they talk about neural pathways being formed, and so how does the principles sort of relate to that kind of scientific talk?
Well, let me see. With these are great questions, and again, what you want to do is try to go back to your truth of thought. And I would guess that in terms of following the logic we've been talking about, and the understanding that, if a human being, including me, has been in habitual thinking about themselves or about life, and consistently in this habitual thinking, my guess is that the body responds to it. Maybe it develops neural pathways or sensations or sensitivities. I think I could see that happening, can't you? If you've had, not you, but let's say somebody's had 30 years of feeling low self-worth, there'd be neural pathways developed from that, the effect of that thinking. Now, the principles are transformative, because they can take someone from that conditioned thinking beyond. They can take someone beyond their learned thinking into a higher level of understanding. You see? So no one, I don't care how, I don't know about neural pathways, but how ingrained they are. If you lifted your level of consciousness, if you went from low self-worth to living in the beauty of you, living in esteem and well-being and happiness and confidence, those neural pathways would change. And that's the hope of the principles, is that any human being can live beyond their conditioning. That's why really there's no personality. Because once a person goes beyond their habitual ways of thinking, they're different. That's what that's what my psychiatrist boss saw in me. And I was different. I was no longer this judgmental, critical person. I was understanding. I was happier in the clinic, just in the clinic. So you're not, that's the hope of the principle. You're not fixed. If you're an anxious person, you're not fixed to live there the rest of your life. The minute you have a realization of thought, you've gone beyond that. Now, maybe you can't maintain it at first, but that's okay, because the more you keep looking beyond your usual ways of looking at life, you start living beyond your learning, your conditioning, how you will learn to think, your habits of thought. Now you'll see them. It's not about being free for the rest of your life of your habits of thought. It's that you know what's going on when they show up. Like, I still get judgmental, but now I know what's going on when I get judgmental. I see it, I realize it, and so I can easily dismiss it. Now, I don't live there like I did, Thankfully, I don't live there like I did. But, your habits of thought come in, but now you know what's happening, you know what's going on. Once you know what's going on, you're saved. That's the saving grace of the principles. They take you beyond your conditioned thinking to live with more freedom to think any way you want to think, to live with more understanding and love and happiness.
Yeah. Yep, I can see that.
Well,
I can,
that's
I can
why,
feel that.
oh, great. That's the thing. You want to feel it.
Yeah.
That's why, I ran a program for addictions in this medical center. And that's why when people came to us, they really dropped their resistance and what people would call resistance and denial. Because when they started to attend our groups, they heard the hope. Once they heard the hope of the principles, nobody's in denial. People want to know. People say, well, gosh, tell me more, But until they feel hope, they protect themselves because they don't know whether or not there's any truth to what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, that was lovely. Thank you.
I think we have an opportunity and probably time for one more. If there's anyone else that's got a question, or maybe comment, thought, idea.
Yes, anything, I could talk for another 10 minutes on a comment.
Yeah.
Hi.
Patricia.
Just I've been touching on the 3 principles for a couple of years, and sometimes I think I get it, and then I completely do not understand a thing. So if I wanted to go back to the start, where is a good start or book to begin again to understand and work with the 3 principles?
I would tell you to go back to Sid's book, Second Chance, and The Enlightened Gardener.
Okay.
And, that would be really the first thing to do. That would be the major step to take. There's no way getting away from reading him, and just absorb it. Don't try to understand. Just try to get a feeling for what he's saying. Because, that's what he's trying to do in every book, is wake that up in you. Wake up in you the understanding again. That's why I refer you to him. There are a lot of 3 principle teachers on YouTube that share the principles. So I would look on YouTube for people that share the 3 principles, but I wouldn't start there, because that is like me today. That's our glimmer of what Sid saw. And we've seen a lot, but we don't understand it to the level he understands it. So those 2 books would be a place to start, to go back and get a feel for the feeling of the principles and the explanation of them.
Okay, thank you. I think we're just so conditioned to go with our thoughts, and it just gets overwhelming. But I'll go back to those books. So I appreciate that.
That's right. That's how it's set up. You see, it's like the human condition. The human condition is to go with your thoughts. Really, that's it. Until you get a sense of what your thoughts are about, that they're being created, until you get an understanding for your thoughts. It's still set up to go with your thoughts.
Yeah.
And what we look for is an understanding of the truth of how that gets created.
Okay. Thank you.
I think too, you might like the video I'm going to send Roan. The answer to can I talk about brain chemistry and depression and anxiety? I think that answer will help you. It's all on thought, but I think it will also help you move back to an understanding of thought. So look at that when I'm going to send it out to Roan.
Yep, great. I will watch that one.
Yeah, I'll share it in a group, Patricia. I'll make sure I'll post it as soon as I get it. Mark, thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate you and the time you've spent with us. If you guys will have a look at Mark's website, he's also doing, I think, the 3P UK conference that's coming up in sort of June. If you're open to that, so have a look. I think he's one of the key speakers, the keynote people there. And Mark, thank you once again. I really appreciate it and looking forward to working with you in the future.
Oh, Rowan, thank you. I just love being with all of you. And I just love the feeling of you when you ask questions. And I just thank you for having me and listening to me. I could feel the respect of people listening. Rowan, I love that you invited me. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Mark. And thank you, everyone. Have a lovely day. Mark, have a good evening. See you guys later. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
So much.
Bye.
Thanks, Rowan.